Hi guys, it's Light again. Welcome to the second installment of TFT Basics with LightKerosene. What we're discussing in this video is items and how to put together a set of items to make a character work, right? So we kind of went over this in the first video. Just these are the tier lists. I've set this tier list up in order based on the relevancy of the item, um, in terms of how useful it is across the board, right? So, Seraphs and Sojin allow your character to cast their ultimate more frequently, which in most cases, outside of say like Jin or something, which we'll discuss in the how to make a comp video, which is coming up next. Uh, in most cases, your character's ultimate determines how quickly they can win a fight, right? So let's say your character gets their ultimate off first. Odds are that ultimate is going to change the landscape of the fight, um, in your favor, right? So that's why I have Seraphs and Sojin at the top, because in most cases you can um, find somebody to put these items on in your comp. So a Seraphs gives your character 40 mana, and upon cast, they get an additional, or they get 20 mana back, which means that not only are you getting to your first ultimate faster, but your second ultimate is going to be started a little bit faster as well because you're getting that 20. Now, if you already get two Seraphs, you are going to get 80 mana, which means pretty much an instant ult for most characters, and then 40 mana towards their next ultimate. So stacking Seraphs is pretty good, but that uses the tier, which is a very contested item. Then you have Sojin, which is tier and BF sword. After your first ultimate, your character gains 18% of their max mana every attack. So between the difference between these two items is that if your character uses 60 or less mana, then you're going to want to go with the Seraphs. If your character uses 60 or more mana, your character is going to use Sojin. If your character uses exactly 60, then you can go with either item. They both offer about the same in terms of usefulness. So think of it like this: if my character uses more than 60 mana, I want a Sojin. If my character uses less than 60 mana, I want a Seraph. Morellos is the next item on our list. If your character does area of effect damage, then a Morellos is likely their best item. What Morellos does is deals it gives you health and ability power, which increases your ability damage off the bat, and also cuts healing by 50% and deals 30% of their max damage as of their max health as true damage. So, like we said, true damage can't be reduced by resistances, which makes it kind of invaluable. This does percentage max health, great for killing tanks, great for killing some of these like lifesteal, celestial type comps that are going around in the meta at the moment. Bramble Vest is the next item on our list. It gives you 2 armors. It makes it so that not only are you getting 40 armor, but you're making it so that your character cannot take critical strikes, which essentially um, is a 25% dodge, so to speak. Uh, but it doesn't dodge the damage as, like, say, a Trap Claw, which actually gives you dodge, but it makes it so that you can't be crit. So stuff like Shaco, Jin, they run crit builds, So those crits are only going to be basic attacks. It also does 200, 120, 175, or 200 based on your champion's level. Damage every time they get attacked. It has a 2.5-second cooldown, but that's another 200 damage going to the area in melee range. So in think like very short range. Then Dragon Claw reduces magic resist by 50%, or sorry, reduces magic damage by 50%, and also gives you a large chunk of magic resistance. So this is great for protecting your tank against sorcerers in particular. If you combine a Bramble Vest and a D-Claw and a Morellonomicon on somebody like, say, a Mordekaiser, he becomes a very strong tank that can usually take out a good 2 to 3 units by himself. An Ionic Spark is a rod and magic resist. It decreases everybody within 2 hexes magic resist by 50% and shocks them for 225% of their max mana when they cast. This is great for any type of magic damage type comp, making it so that they actually take damage. And then Rabadons, 2 rods, increases spell power by 50%. It's the best for sorcerers. And then the God Sword is what I call it. Gives you 15 attack damage every time you get a kill or an assist. So you start off with 1 stack of it, which means that this sword right off the bat is giving you 45 attack damage. And then on top of that, you're getting the 15 every time there's an attack. So typically, or every time your character gets a kill or an assist. So typically you want to put this on somebody that is attack damage focused. This plays into our tier A. So based on your tier S item that you decided to go with, your tier S item is, or your tier A item is going to supplement that. We're not going to cover all the items and what they do. I just wanted to give you an idea of like why I put these S items in the S tier. It's because these items are generically good. They aren't character specific, like say the A, B, and C tier items. And you're typically looking to try to make as many A and S tier items as you can. The reason items like Hurricane, Trapclaw, Zephyr, Zeke's, and Thieves' Gloves are in the B tier, whereas they are very good items. Everything in the B tier is a good item. They typically get outperformed by the A and S tier items. So it's not that you shouldn't buy, B tier items. They're probably just as good as an A tier item, but they're just a little bit worse. Whereas when you get to the C and don't play items, they tend to be not worth the components that you're sacrificing to make them. But at sometimes you just have leftover items and you need to make these items. That's when you would do that. The don't play. Let's discuss the 4 don't play items before we head out. The don't play items. Static Shiv just got reworked. There is some merit in playing it now, but essentially because D-Claw is so meta and Ionic Spark is so meta, you're reducing magic damage anyways. And as we discussed in the last video, when you take a hit, you get mana back. So odds are you're only doing like 40 damage to 3 targets with the Static Shiv, and you're giving them mana to ult faster. So it's typically a bad item. Quicksilver Sash, the magic resist is just better used in other items, and the dodge chance isn't really worth it. Like there are use cases, like say you have a double Seraphs, Quicksilver Sash, Misfortune. okay, well, there's an example, but overall, unless you just have like a very niche case, you're not going to want to put this on a carry, because a carry you want to have damage items, and you're not putting this on a tank because you don't care that they get CC'd in most cases, unless it's like the mech pilot Garen, but I doubt it. Warmogs just doesn't seem to give enough healing. I think that 150 cap that they did was a mistake, given the power of Morello and Red Buff and how often they're used. It just isn't worth it, in my opinion. And then the reason you don't run the Jeweled Gauntlet is because it has a 25% chance to give you a 50% more damage on your ultimate, um, or on your abilities. Your abilities can crit basically. So if you think about it, you're putting yourself up to a 45% chance to do 50% more damage. Why not just buy a Rabadon's and just have more AP and have a 50%, 100% of the time? Like, why limit yourself 65% of the time to do less damage? So I understand that you're not always going to get Rabadon's types items, but in most cases, it's just an avoid item to make a Seraphs. It's just better to make a Rabadon's across the board, or not a Seraphs, but a Jeweled Gauntlet. It's better to make a Rabadon's across the board. So that's the don't play. These basic items, these are items that you're going to go for on every carousel, and I split this into 3 sections. So offensive items, defensive items, and items you should settle for, right? Unless you need to make something. Typically, you're not looking for the items in set 3. That said, a spatula was hard to place in the tier list, because if you do need to make like a demolitionist or a Darkstar or a Blade Master, or even a Celestial, then making that is obviously going to take priority over making, say, a Bramble or a Last Whisper, because it's going to benefit your whole team, right? So there are exceptions to this. A synergy is obviously better. So, but spatulas are so rare and you can't count on them. So when I made this tier list, I was thinking about what can you count on consistently to give you the best results, and this is where I came up with my tier list. S tier, generic items. A tier, also generic items, but typically a little bit more niche. B tier, definitely niche items. And then C tier, just get outclassed. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I try to stay as interactive with everybody as I can. But that concludes the items video, and our next video is going to be on how to make a team comp. Thanks, and I hope you're enjoying the series thus far. Bye.